So Ford is in the news, and not exactly for good reason, although kind of not exactly for bad reason either. They're currently being investigated, criminally investigated, by the Department of Justice because their emissions aren't exactly 100%.
Yeah.
Too badass. What do you think, AJ?
Well, I don't know. Let's get the facts. Let's see. Marley and Danny have the facts, so we just have to kind of chime in.
I went and got all the facts because it's some tea spill on Ford finally, so I'm like over here like,
Yeah.
yes. So it looks like all of their 2017 vehicles and up may not be accurate to what they've been putting out. They have a similar situation to what Volkswagen had a few years back about their emissions, except for theirs isn't a device that's hiding it. They just pretty much were not being accurate on how much it's actually putting out.
So what?
Was it
So
Volkswagen lying about the gas mileage and stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that.
So what happened with Volkswagen? Just to recap.
Volkswagen lied about the emissions that those cars were putting out. They were using a device that would, when they were being tested, that would like turn the emissions down. I don't know how to even describe that.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like a weird emissions bypass kind of device that would trigger something in, I think, the computer. I don't really know 100%, so I don't want anybody to quote me, and I don't want to get.
But it tricked false results.
It definitely was a device, though.
So what happened?
Oh, they got a huge fine. They got their names dragged through the mud, and they're still selling cars.
No, but didn't one of the C-level position guys, executives or whatever, go to prison for this?
I believe so. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll go look and then put the link in that.
The reason why I'm asking is because what are the repercussions for Ford?
Probably just a financial slap on their wrist. That's probably all it's gonna be. Some people might get fired, and that's gonna be it. My thing is that if it's a little bit, I get that emissions is a big deal for a lot of people. Like, oh, we need
Californians,
especially Californians, that people are like, oh, we gotta save the planet and whatnot. But if you go and look and see how much emissions like transportation is compared to everything else from like companies that are producing biochemicals and all that extra crap, it's a very small slice of the pie. So I don't think it's a huge, this is coming from, a car enthusiast. I personally don't think that's a huge issue, but anything we can do to get the government some more money, right?
Well, I think a lot of it too, like AJ, like you mentioned, has to do with the California state, the state of California, because in the article there was mention of CARB, the California Emissions Board being a big factor in why they needed to, or in what triggered the sort of criminal investigation, because something about not meeting their standards, their testing standards. So California definitely held a big role in this whole situation.
Well, you would think that CARB probably wants to promote using, hybrids and low emission cars, and you got a big major manufacturer like Ford, selling a lot of vehicles in California, so to go after the big fish. So that's what they did.
And it did say that it is triggering more investigations into other manufacturers. Me in particular, just sitting back, I'm worried for my Dodge friends. I think that's going to probably be an interesting one because those are just loud, fast cars.
Yeah.
So I'm suspecting we're going to see stuff from Chevy.
You said boats are worse, right? Boats have worse emissions.
That's true.
That's what they
very
say.
true.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that you actually brought up, though, is I think that is the reason why the GT500 horsepower numbers have not come out yet. Is because I'm sure that they've known about this for a while, and that's probably why.
Probably trying to see what can we do.
So now we're going to be looking at probably a lower horsepowered GT500 than anticipated.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Marley had an interesting sort of conspiracy theory
I like
about
conspiracy
everything.
theories, by the way, guys.
I think you should share it because
I love
it's very
conspiracy
interesting.
theories.
It makes you think differently.
Okay, so I think, and this is from someone who likes, I like day trading and buying stock and that sort of thing. So I noticed that Ford's stock went up a little bit today after this article came out. I think Ford did turn themselves in and say, hey, we need to be investigated. I think they did that, of course, to control their narrative, the story of what's about to happen. But I think that Ford is about to go, you know what? Emissions is just, we need to be more conscious about the earth. And so from this point on, we're going to start producing a lot more electric and a lot more hybrid, because they've already teased about the Mustang coming out as either a hybrid or electric car. So I think this is their way of going
To jumpstart their sales.
into that, yeah,
Because they are going to do it.
Yeah. That would be literally the best way to do it. So, and it'll make the whole criminal investigation not seem that like, guys, we're really sorry about this. We're gonna be better. We're gonna make electric cars and hybrid cars, and I think that's why they're doing it this way.
And I think it also puts the blame on not the company, now it puts it on the state
It
or
puts it on
emissions.
the
So it's
state
like
emissions,
we're not
yeah.
building electric cars because we don't want to build, gas cars. We're doing it because we can. So now it's kind of like one of those things where they use that as an excuse.
And again, everything Marley said is not confirmed. This is her theory. And I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it made a lot of sense, especially because their stock did go up. Normally, during something like this, it would go down, but for some reason it went up. And I think it's because there's a lot of people who, insiders might think Marley's onto something here on this
Yeah, I went bought.
You're gonna get FBI knocking on your door tomorrow.
one. Yeah, we're gonna get an
We're gonna get
NDA.
insiders trading. Like, oh shit.
We're gonna get an NDA. If we get assassinated in like the next week or two, then you know why.
I am not associated with it. AJ's old, who cares, he's gonna die anyways.
Oh my
So don't worry about him.
No, but-
I don't know. I just think it's weird. It's weird.
No, I think AJ did bring it, making this about the GT500 now. I think AJ, you did bring up a good point. How is this going to affect the GT500? Because the cars affected are everything from 2017 and newer.
Or how is it gonna affect the GT350? It went from the value was gonna drop when the new one came out. What if the new one doesn't put out good numbers? Maybe his value will go up.
Well, I think the 500. So they keep on saying that they're doing road testing on the car. Trying to get the most out of it. But I think, by now they should already know what the horsepower is. I think they're just holding on to it, and there's probably a higher number that they could probably play with. But to be safe and pass CARB for California, they're probably going to go lower. So it is very interesting because they've been holding on to. There's no reason for them. There hasn't been any other reason for them to hold out on the horsepower.
Yeah.
They know the horsepower already.
They have
They have to.
They have to.
But they're gonna have to wait and see what's gonna be official from CARB before they can.
Or just the department.
Because that's a big launch. That's a lot of GT500s. We already heard rumors that certain dealerships in California are getting a lot of them. So it's a lot of GT500s going to be on the car lots.
I'm wondering what will happen after this investigation. So let's say that they found that Ford, all 2017 vehicles from Ford is in fact not CARB legal or is not emissions standard. If I remember correctly, Volkswagen had to recall all of those vehicles. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to end up happening for Ford as well, and that will be massive.
It'll be a big recall, but I don't think it would be all the makes. It might be certain motors, certain cars. So depending on which, we don't know which cars those are. It might be Mustangs, but it might be the 2018 Mustang. That might be a big one because they sold a lot of them already.
Yeah.
So it might, you got to figure out which cars it affected, because like Volkswagen, I think it was one Volkswagen that was affected. It was a Touareg or something like that.
Oh, the whale shark.
Yeah. So we don't know which cars were affected. Like, the little four bangers that are out there. Maybe the Eco. You never know. It might be the EcoBoost motors.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Because they're putting out a lot of. Those are turbo motors, and they're putting a lot of torque and a lot of horsepower for the size of the motor. So, to squeeze those numbers, maybe they did lie.
Yeah.
So maybe it's all the Raptors and all the EcoBoost out there that might be getting recalled.
One thing is, don't quote me on this, guys. I think Ford, a lot of American manufacturers make pretty good cars that are out today. What kind of worries me is, like, we're not manufacturers, so we don't know what the emission standards are, like, that they have to meet. I'm starting to wonder if it's too much, because like I think cars are getting better and better every year they come out. They're getting better and better gas mileage, better, you know, everything. So I'm a little worried to see that like it might be just a little bit past their regulations, and if they're being too harsh on emissions, and if that's holding back the advancement of technology because of those emissions.
Interesting.
You know
Well,
what
I mean, but like as far as emissions go, us here in California, you know, if you change out your exhaust and throw on a different intake, your car will still pass smog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that goes through a database. You hook up your car, it's in the system, you know, and your car will still pass. So I think what the manufacturers are, like you said, they're probably very stringent on what they have to meet. But as far as California is concerned, as far as, you know, getting your car smogged after 5 years now, you know, they still pass, and it's easy to pass.
But it's illegal.
No, it's not illegal.
Well, I mean, adding like for example,
Well, there's carb legal parts.
Well, there's carb legal parts.
There is, but there's some that aren't. And all you have to do to be carb legal is that company has to go pay for registration.
Right.
They have to give California money.
Yeah.
Whether it's the same technology or not, they have to just go and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right?
but on the same token, you can still change out the parts. I'm saying even if they aren't carb legal, they will still pass the smog test.
Yeah.
Now, there's two
visual,
kinds of
yeah.
tests. There's a visual test and a mechanical test. Now, if your smog guy overlooks that you don't have a stamp, mechanically you're good. So, you know, I mean, what I'm saying is the cars still pass even though you modify them. I mean, you see the restrictions on the mufflers and even the air filters that these cars have. They're ridiculous. You know, they almost make your car run worse. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
The car doesn't breathe. It just, you know, they run worse. You know.
That's what I'm saying is that I feel like
You get better gas mileage out of them when you
Yeah.
take those things
Exactly.
off. Like just a filter, you get better gas mileage.
Exactly.
Exhaust, you get better gas mileage.
That's what I'm saying is I think emissions, we're getting to the point where emissions is holding back the advancement of technology, and I think it might be something that I'm hoping if a ton of manufacturers get hit, that they can rally together and see if they can change the law, because it's starting to sound like that it's holding technology back, and I think that's a problem.